The legal system, like many of the other systems in our country, turns around money. And money makes a big difference on everything. It's not what we think of in America, but it's the reality of America. You didn't have family law firms in the old days because the people who ran the big firms weren't interested in doing family law. There was no money in it. Once houses started to go up in value and more money came into the family law system, some of those big firms did get interested in family law.
The cases became much bigger, so divorce became a business-type trial.
It's not surprising that the average contested divorce in the U.S. costs $50,000. In the last 40 years, the number of divorce lawyers has exploded, increasing over 2,000% in California alone. And this is a nationwide issue. No matter what state you live in, you're going to get pulled in.
We're all part of this machine that makes divorce a business. It is a business, and I'm not ashamed to say that. This is how I feed my family. This is how I keep a roof over my head. This is how I put gas in my Rolls Royce.
And when children get involved, things get even more complicated.
The real heart of family court, the real thing that is the most painful and that is the most damaging is custody fights. And I really think that courts need to, for the most part, get out of that business.
I do believe that in many cases the system does fail children.
The family courts are supposed to acknowledge several Supreme Court decisions that both parents have an equal right to see their children.
Is a fundamental constitutional right of parenthood. The Supreme Court has said it repeatedly, go back, over 100 years.
Parents have a constitutional right to raise their children, and we have to defer to their judgment unless we find that their judgment is detrimental.
But it turns out the family courts have trumped the Supreme Court with a doctrine called the best interest of the child. This doctrine is a broad set of guidelines that allows the court to scrutinize nearly every aspect of parenting.
What does this mean, the best interest of the child? You say, can I have some criteria? Is it better to study a lot or to have friends? Is it better to play baseball or chess? Is it better to watch, movies, old movies on TV, or watch the new movies?
If there was a legislative definition of what the best interest is, then of course we could follow that.
Ends up meaning pretty much whatever first a trial judge and then a court of appeal court wants it to mean.
The judge gets to decide whether the parent's ethics, morals, and behavior fits his or her profile for the perfect parent. And ultimately, they have the undisputed power to choose one parent over the other, or neither parent at all.
What I would consider a good parent, another judge might not consider a good parent.
They have to decide who's best for this child and who's a better parent. So suppose you're in the 88th percentile as a parent, and then the other parent is in the 93rd percentile, then you could, as a judge, say, I think the child should spend more time because that's better. Whereas if you have two parents and one is the 3rd percentile and the other's in the 8th percentile, the 8th would get it, between those two parents. But look at that. The one who's in the 88th now doesn't get his child, and the one who's in the 8th does get his child because of the purely fortuitous circumstances of the marriage or the union. The whole thing is just insane.
As long as you treat your family well and there's not anything going on criminally and there's not some abuse, the state doesn't get involved. But for some reason, when you file for divorce, a whole bunch of strangers are starting to look up your address.
Neglect and abuse, sure, the government has a right to be there, has a duty to be there. We're talking about the situation in family court, two fit parents who, outside of this system, would never be challenged in terms of their right to be with a child.
You need evaluators, you need psychologists, you need all these people to tell you what you did wrong. I will never understand that.
Because the concept of the best interest of the child is so nebulous, the court system created a position called a custody evaluator. These evaluators advise the judges to help them determine who should get custody of the children.
As a parenting evaluator, you conduct all sorts of tests, personality tests, and then make a recommendation who should get primary custody of the kids.
Give me a list of all your friends, all the people who know you. Then they go and interview each and every one of them. And then every time someone says something good or bad, they look into that.
Many people are very defensive when they're being evaluated by a stranger to see if they're a worthwhile parent. I mean, who wouldn't be? The MMPI Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory has test-retest reliability that's 50% of the people change in less than 2 weeks. I mean, it's the most widely used test in the country, but it is not a reliable test. And showing you a bunch of ink blots, what's this look like? What do you see in here? And then scoring you for narcissism or defensiveness or paranoia because you see bats and butterflies and birds is not based on science. It's unethical. It is unconscionably unethical.
The custody evaluators, for the most part, are a bunch of morons making money off the backs of people who don't even quite understand the system.
Do you know what the qualifications of being a custody evaluator are?
Can I name them? Yeah, probably not. I can tell you it took my attending a 2-day seminar that one could basically sleep through.
As a parenting evaluator, you don't have to be good at understanding the human condition or knowing who would be a better parent. What you have to be good at is writing reports and testifying and being able to convince a judge that you know what you're talking about.
In the old days, you could get those evaluations for anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000, more typically $5,000 to $7,500. Now I'm seeing them $35,000, $60,000. They're very expensive.
You end up getting a bill for $50,000 to $100,000 for an evaluation that, until you file for divorce, none of this was an issue.
Evaluators are frequently hired by one parent or the other. So the evaluator's purpose is to achieve the parent's goal, the goal of the parent who hired him or her.
Whatever expert you get to say about how bad mom is at parenting her child, the other side can get another expert to say, mom's a great parent. And that's where the rub comes, because the fact that it has no merit.
It's known within the industry that certain firms have certain custody evaluators in their back pocket. And I can confirm that that's what happens.
So it really shows you so often what matters is not the relationship between the children and both parents, but money.